forget what you think you like. Today we're gonna dip into some weird stuff. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. This week we are going to be taking a look, getting some first impressions of some pretty wild fragrances that I found recently that I'm pretty excited about. And I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to stand on a soapbox for a minute and talk a little bit about acquired tastes. I am 39 years old and was raised in Western Washington and in kind of a smaller town about an hour south of Seattle. And growing up, you know, there wasn't a lot of like crazy cuisine. By the time I turned 18, there was a lot more like Asian. You could get sushi, pho, things like that. But growing up, like the strangest thing was like chicken teriyaki. There wasn't anything that was too far afield of that. You could occasionally get Thai, but I later discovered that what we thought was Thai in my hometown had little resemblance to the actual real deal. So my brother, who's 4 years older than me, he went to UW, and one of the things that would happen is I would go up and visit him, and because he was in Seattle, he was getting exposed to a lot more different kinds of cuisine, and so he would always drag me along. And my kind of thought process on it was, well, if it's popular enough in another country to make it over here across the sea to the US, it's probably worth at least trying. And I think that has actually served me very well. I think one notable example is pho. The first time my brother took me to go get that, if you've ever had pho, usually you give you a whole range of options of different kinds of meats to add. He asked me how adventurous I wanted to be, and I was like, get me whatever you get. So he got me one with all the fixins, tripe tendon, you know, all that good stuff. And I loved it immediately. It blew my mind. I'd never had anything like it. It was so delicious. Still to this day, one of my favorite dishes. So, you know, that's just kind of like for me, trying new things it's part of like what makes me go. It really invigorates me to have new experiences, to experience change. But there are some things that you try or smell where the first time you have them, you're like, I don't think this is for me. And there are instances where like repeated exposure has taught me that that's actually not my first impressions were wrong. A good example is Clamato. Just the name, for anyone who knows it and doesn't like it, probably inspires a bit of a sick stomach. But the idea, if you don't know what Clamato is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's clam and tomato juice. And I like it in the context of a popular Canadian drink called a Caesar, which is Clamato, lime, Worcestershire, vodka if you want it. And it's so good. I also use it in Bloody Marys and things like that. So I like tomatoes. Turns out I also kind of like the briny thing. But the first time I had it, I had to get past this mental block of like, it's kind of weird to feel like I'm drinking something this briny. And it felt odd to me, honestly. So I kind of did some looking and research, and there are two main factors that drive acquired tastes. The first one is kind of a funny, simplistic sounding thing called the mere exposure concept, which is basically that the more you get exposed to something, the more likely you are to be able to look past whatever was initially putting you off. And there's some biological factors as well. As humans, we tend to veer in taste, we tend to veer towards things that are sweet and have umami, which is kind of that protein sensation. So that makes sense. We're looking for carbs, we're looking for protein, the things that we need to grow. When it comes to smell, we tend to avoid, and in taste, we tend to avoid bitter things, right? Because bitter usually means like a poisonous plant, and it still means that in the case of spring mix, because spring mix is bitter and gross. But there are other instances of bitter things that are very good, and they become good when you are able to taste beyond the bitterness and understand the depth in that. I think beer is actually a really good example of an acquired taste, because I don't really know anyone who the first time they have a beer go, oh, it's exactly what I needed. But as someone who brews a lot of beer, that is absolutely the case for me. Like, I didn't like it at first. I thought it was weird. And it wasn't until I had it paired with the right things. Beer goes really well with pizza because the pizza is a lot sweeter than beer. So when you go back and forth between taking a bite of pizza and having a drink of beer, you suddenly are able to kind of taste both better, if that makes sense. And so that's kind of been my MO for a lot of my adult life is try something out. If I don't like it, give it some time, try it again, try it in different contexts, and see what the deal is with it. There are some things that I have just simply given up on, Brussels sprouts being the most notable. I will pretty much happily eat any other vegetable, but I have determined that Brussels sprouts smell like dog poop and they taste just like dog poop, and all you can do is cook it and make it taste like cooked dog poop. So I can't. I know that might be the Mount Everest of acquired tastes for me is Brussels sprouts, which is weird because, you know, they're kind of close to broccoli, and broccoli's weird, but I love broccoli, so I don't know, it's weird, strange. But let's get into today's scents, because I think, you know, I have with me, I think, two great examples of acquired tastes in both, one in cuisine and smell, and the other one mainly in smell. And it's these two fragrances I got from company in Los Angeles, and I'm not sure if it's I am gonna butcher, I'll put the name up here because I don't want to butcher. It's like d.grayi, and I'm not sure how to say it. I apologize profusely for mispronouncing that. I also see Level 1 Studios, so I'm not sure which is the official name, but makes lots of different pretty interesting sounding scents. There was two that stood out to me. I found them because of a durian scent, which I'll talk about in a second, and the other one is called Super Sexy Skunk. And so both of those stood out to me because both of them are exactly what I was talking about with acquired tastes. There is this bakery in downtown Seattle that does incredible stuff. They make things unlike you've ever had before, and they were located in the International District, so they would actually do a lot of like Asian influenced baked goods, and so they would usually have like a lot of like standard kind of American things that you might think about with interesting flavors, and then they would mix it up by throwing in something wild like a durian cream puff. Durian, if you're not familiar, is a fruit that is popular for smelling and sort of tasting a little bit like rotting trash. It's creamy, which makes it sound even worse. And it's one of those things that the first time I had it, I was like, no, not at all. Like, what is this? No. And because it is exactly that. I mean, you smell it and you taste it and you're like, this is not pleasant. And so, but my wife is such a fan of this bakery, and I am too, that we would go back and just to try out, because they have a rotating menu every week, different things, and we would want to try them, really fun flavors. They had a Thai iced tea cream puff. They don't just make cream puffs, but those ones stood out to me. The Thai iced tea cream puff was so good. Anyway, they started to do the durian cream puffs every week because they were so popular. And I was like, man, these things are so popular. I got to get another one. So I got another one. And the next time I had it, I was like, you know what? It's weird. It still tastes like trash, but it's not off-putting like it was the first time. And then it did this thing where there are some foods, and I think Dad's root beer, if you've ever had it, is a good example of this, where you'll drink one and then 4 hours later you'll burp and you go, that was a good root beer, right? Durian is in the same camp, where you will have something with durian in it and you might burp a few hours later and you'll be like, oh yeah, I ate durian. But the thing is, once you get past the initial shock of what it smells and tastes like, and you can get through to the other things, which is like this really great custardy, creamy flavor, once you get into that, then you're like, oh, actually, I think maybe I like this. And it goes from I'm going to avoid this to, well, maybe I'll just get one and have one bite, you know? And then you get it and you're like, okay, yeah, I had the bite, that's cool. And then a few months later, you're like, you know, I could really go for one of those cream puffs. And then it becomes a thing where every time I would go, if they had them, I was picking them up because they're so good. So this is a good example of that. I really love that. The idea of making a fragrance out of it seems wild to me. So I'm really stoked to check this out. And I also got to say, I love that with these fragrances, you get these little Pokemon cards with notes on them. So I'm going to read those. I kind of stopped reading the notes, but this is first impressions. I haven't smelled this yet. So I'm going to read the notes out and then we'll give it a go. Kaffir lime, tea leaves, durian tincture, avocado, condensed milk, and amber. Sounds like it could be very interesting. So let's check this one out and see what we think. The juice is clear, but it almost looks like it's got like a hint of cloudiness to it. Okay. Caught a little whiff in the air. Oh man, that is so cool. So, okay, this is perfect. This is really well done. This is really, really well done because I think, man, it's getting windy. Giving the wind a second to die down. This is one of the fun parts of shooting outside. Okay, I'm gonna talk about this. So the thing about durian is it does have that weird sort of smell. When it becomes an acquired taste though, you start to really enjoy it. So it's gonna be interesting because I know my mother-in-law, she very determinedly hates durian. So I'm kind of curious to have her smell this and see what she thinks, because there definitely is the durian in this. Like the smell of the fruit is absolutely present here, but with those other notes kind of surrounding it, it kind of gives it this higher, it's more elevated. I hate using that term because it sounds so pretentious, but this is more than just that fruit. I mean, obviously the other notes are in there, but this actually smells like a really, really interesting gourmand fragrance that honestly, I haven't smelled anything else like it. This is super interesting. Now, this is a good example of an acquired taste because I already like durian at this point. So smelling this, I'm going to be predisposed to liking it more because of that association, which I gotta say, it's not just the mere exposure with durian. It is also kind of a Pavlovian response, right? I'm eating these sweet baked goods and I'm getting, you know, mental stimulation from the sugar and all that stuff. So there is a biological impact that is creating that Pavlovian response. If you're not familiar with what that means, there was a Russian man named Pavlov. He had a dog. He started to do this thing where he would give a dog a treat and ring a bell, and every time he would ring the bell, every time give a treat, ring a bell, and eventually he could just ring the bell and the dog would start salivating because of the association of the bell with the treat. That's the Pavlovian response. So there is even a little bit of that going on right now where I'm starting to create a little bit more saliva in my mouth from smelling this. It captures the best parts of durian, but I do have to say it kind of dials back on some of that rotting trash, which is appropriate for a fragrance, right? You wouldn't want it to smell like rotting garbage. But it still definitely has the character. I think avocado is a really, really good, interesting thing to pair with this. I didn't think about avocado. You know, I've had like durian ice cream and stuff like that, but I haven't really thought about pairing durian with avocado, but it does seem like an absolutely natural pairing that would go really good together. So, man, winner chicken dinner. This is really, really cool. I am a fan of this. All right, so I have a very, very weird confession to make here. I love the smell of skunks. I know, it is nature's intent that I be incredibly repelled by it, but the reverse is true. And in this case, it is pure Pavlovian response. Not because I've drank or tasted skunk oil, but because of the association. So, growing up in Western Washington, my favorite seasons happens to be around my birthday, but I just like the fall. I love the air in the fall. You get this really crisp, dry, cold air. It's not super cold, but it's got a little bit of that biting, you know. You step out to go to school and you get that really cold blast of dry air and it just feels like fall. The leaves are beautiful wherever there are deciduous trees, which not very many. It's a lot of evergreens behind me. And we are the evergreen state, but we do have trees, and the ones that we do that have leaves, they look beautiful when they're falling. But everything, I think, I just really love the way fall looks and feels. And one of the hallmarks of it for where I lived, every once in a while, you could smell a skunk. Somewhere it got sprayed within several miles, and you could get it in the air. And it became one of those things where I just started to associate it with my favorite time of year. And so whenever I smell it, it just kind of makes me feel nostalgic, makes me long for home in a way, which is a weird thing then because weed got legalized everywhere. So there's a lot of weed that smells like skunks, and skunk is like, well, that is used as a adjective for weed many times. So it became one of those weird things where now I drive past a dispensary and you can smell it, and it's just one of those things where I'm like, it hasn't changed the association yet for me, but it is one of those things where I still smell it and I'm like, yeah, I still like that smell. that weird kind of almost industrial, oily, greasy smell. It's always kind of smelled like some sort of the product of like a construction, like there's like some sort of oil or grease at a construction site, and this is part of it. That's kind of what it always struck me as. Again, doesn't sound very pleasant. It is purely the association, but as a result, I really do like the smell quite a bit. So I saw, when I went to get the Durian fragrance, I saw that they also had one called Super Sexy Skunk, which is, it's skunk and weed. And here are the notes. It's cannabis, sativa, hemp, rose, skunk tincture, chocolate, oud, amber, sandalwood, and oak moss. That sounds super interesting. I am super excited to smell this one, just because I really enjoyed the natural take that came from the d.grayi, the forbidden flower. And I think that one's super interesting. Very different take though. That one very much going for classic, elegant. I'm hoping that this one's a little bit more photorealistic, but we shall see. So I'm gonna spray this one. That is a dark juice. Okay. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. 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 It's not quite what I was expecting. It's not kind of the green smell that I would like think about with weed. Oh man, but it is definitely cannabis. Like, this is maybe out of any of the, I have several. I've been chasing this dragon for a while, so I have a handful of fragrances that are centered around cannabis, and this is probably the best one for referencing the actual smell. I'm getting attacked by yellow jackets, which is making me think that maybe the Durian is more realistic than I thought it might be. Okay, so this one, I'm sorry, back to this. This is interesting because I get the other things in there too. This is a very cool blend. Okay, opens up with absolutely that cannabis that you would expect it to be. Not quite as green as I would think. This is more of like actual bud. Might even have been partially smoked. Yeah, but it doesn't smell like a stoner. It doesn't smell like trashy. It smells, because it's also got, the chocolate is there for sure, and the rose is there. It's very slight. It's very sweet though. The rose is like, it's not like standing out a ton, but it does provide, I think, a little bit of sweetness in there. That is so interesting. I think if I had, again, this is just like the thing, like this is definitely cannabis, and I want to wear this on skin to see, but I wish that it was a little bit more skunk. But out of all of the weed smells, or weed like the cannabis centered fragrances that I have smelled, this one is probably doing the most admirable job. I mean, this and Black Afghano I think are like the best that I've smelled. This is really interesting. The thing I like about this is it's edgy. This one is risky. You shouldn't wear this one to work. Because there is an aspect, I think, of if you wear this, it might come across as if you were just smoking weed. Because it does have kind of that photorealistic smell, like, you know, of some bud in a bong. But like, it's really interesting and well done. This is I appreciate the guts, honestly, because this is a fun one. I think this is, like you would probably imagine, good for fall, good for winter. Summertime, this is a pretty dense, heavy scent. So I'm not sure how much I would want to wear this one in the spring or the summer, but spring maybe. Not in the heat though. Man, what an interesting scent. This is really cool. I gotta say, again, both of these would have a vastly different reaction from someone else who doesn't have these associations and these affinities for both these ingredients that I do. But this is the kind of stuff that I smell in fragrances that really gets me hyped up and excited, because it's like, man, cool, you guys are doing something way different. I mean, I think there's a couple of Durian fragrances out there, but like, of course, you know, it's not gonna be one of those things that people will think will be commercially viable. In the case of Durian, that one is just great. I think that one, even, I don't know, I gotta test it on someone who doesn't like Durian, but it's such like a sweet and pleasing scent. I would be surprised if even Durian haters didn't like it. This one, I know exactly who's gonna like this one. And it's the people that you would expect, but I think, you know, here's the thing. Like this is very much narrow casting. Like the super sexy skunk is very narrow casting in terms of the audience that will appreciate it. And I am so grateful for Level 1 Studios, I'm just gonna call it that instead of butchering the name. I am so grateful for them to have the guts to do this and actually go for it, rather than like, imagine like Hindu Kush from Mancera. I think if you're trying to find the cannabis in that, you have to really want it, because I have spent a significant amount of time with that fragrance, and I can't get anything, any kind of weed smell from it at all. And that was kind of a bummer, because Mancera, you think they do these big bold fragrances, Montal as well, or Montal, whatever. Montal makes those fragrances as well, very loud, very forward, and you wonder why they couldn't do something like this. The other thing too, I'll say, this has been on the strip for a minute, and a lot of that weed smell has kind of dissipated a little bit, and it's more, I think, it's more of a more kind of woody rose chocolate scent. Still really good, and you can still get that, but it has calmed down a little bit. Again, I want to test this on skin to see what happens, but very, very interesting. I think it's a cool house. I'm gonna have to get some more stuff from them. I did get another fragrance that was free with these two, and I'll probably talk about that in another video. Just didn't fit the theme of this one, but it's also very interesting. So these two though, killer. I love this. This is exactly the kind of stuff I want to be talking about on this channel. The weird, the narrow casting. Not gonna have a huge appeal, obviously, but I'm hoping that some people will enjoy these fun scents and try them out, because these were also pretty decently priced. I think it was like 40 bucks or something for 15 milliliters, which I think these will go a long way. But yeah, check them out, and I'll put a link in the video. There's no affiliates, there's no nothing like that. I bought these with my own money, and so I'm not working for the man or whatever people freak out about. This is just my recommendation, because my first impressions were good, so you should go check out their other stuff and see if there's something you like there. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me this week. This was a fun one, and I'm really happy that it turned out this way, and that I didn't have to do it and then go, okay, well, I like these things, but I don't like these fragrances. So a pleasant surprise that I really, really did enjoy both of them. So I will probably talk more about them as I get to know them a little bit more, but very cool. Let me know if you've smelled them in the comments. If you have any ideas for other weird fragrances, kind of, you know, doing something like this, let me know, because this is the kind of stuff I'm trying to find, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.